The Great Plateau is the huge area in which the demo for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild takes place. It's a huge segregated area of the map containing a small mountain, forest, river and grassy plains. But could it be the very same location as Ocarina of Time's famous castle town? Quick note, this was a theory I've been planning for a while, but was delayed because TK James beat me to the punch over on Reddit, so in order to not do the same thing, I've expanded and adapted on the theory. If you want to go check out his excellent post pointing out the connections concisely between the two locations, check it out in the description below. The Great Plateau serves as the tutorial area for Breath of the Wild, separated from the outside world because it's raised high above the land around it, and relatively safe from the dangers that terrorise Hyrule. This huge landmass contains mysterious ruins, which I argue are the last remaining pieces of what was once the great, thriving castle town from Ocarina of Time. Impossible? Let's look at the evidence. First off, the old man describes the Great Plateau as the birthplace of the Kingdom of Hyrule. We know that this is referring to the sealed grounds and the sealed temple from Skyward Sword because that's where Hyrule was founded. Upon the sealed temple, the Temple of Time was built, and sure enough, the Temple of Time is found in the Great Plateau. Hyrule Castle and Castle Town were then built around the Temple of Time in the years that followed, meaning that these ruins must be Castle Town. Not good enough for you? Right, there's more. With credit to Reddit user Nightmary, overlaying the map from Ocarina of Time's Hyrule Castle Market over the Great Plateau has interesting results. So I did the same using actual maps from the game's files, stitching together maps from the town itself and Hyrule Castle and then laying it over a high quality map of the plateau, and got this result. I know what you're thinking. You've just stuck the map over the plateau with no regard for anything else. Why does this prove anything? The Temple of Time doesn't even properly line up. Well, there's a reason for the position of this map. Let's start with the central point of Ocarina of Time's Castle Town, the fountain in the centre of the market square. Surely, if these two locations are the same, then this iconic landmark would be present. Let's look at the map, which suggests we should see a fountain here. Which we do. At this location, there's a ruined fountain, broken and covered in dirt and rubble. This could mean that this clearing was once the market square from Castletown. Further evidence for this is the stone bricked floor, which is obviously man-made and shows that this area was once populated and used. This path here is a small alley leading through the back streets of the town, which is supported by the ruins of buildings lining up well with these alleys. In my opinion, this is what's the strongest evidence for the link between these maps, the road to Hyrule Castle. In Ocarina of Time, leaving the market square and taking a right will lead you to a large stone gate, the gate to Hyrule Castle. What's present at this location in the Great Plateau? A giant stone archway. These two gates even line up perfectly on the map, including the location of the hills to either side. In Ocarina of Time, Child Link must sneak past the guards at this gate to get to Hyrule Castle on the hill above, but in Breath of the Wild, it's a sad reminder of the great kingdom that once was. If Child Link passes this gate, then takes a left, he's able to climb a hill. On this hill, there's a large clearing, and beyond that, Hyrule Castle itself. Well, what's present here in Breath of the Wild? It's eerily similar. A steep hill, followed by a large clearing, beyond which is a large set of ornate ruins. Are these the ruins of Hyrule Castle itself? I believe so. The position on the map, which I've already lined up with the Temple of Time, the Market Square Fountain, and the Stone Gate, suggests that these ruins, named the Eastern Abbey, are those of Hyrule Castle. This is further supported by the actual structure of the ruins. Before them, there's a sharp dip, which could very well be the remains of the moat that surrounded the castle. Additionally, the layout of these ruins is very reminiscent of the castle gardens, which Link must sneak through to find Princess Zelda. If we follow the path down from the fountain, we'll pass more ruins until we come to a pool of water. Water which has filled a dip leading down to the main gate, the reverse side of which we can see in certain cutscenes. This parallels the walk from the fountain to Hyrule Field in Ocarina of Time, through buildings into a clear path to the gate. The only part of this idea that doesn't match with the map is the main gate. which seems to have moved 90 degrees clockwise from its position in Ocarina. However, moving where a gate is situated isn't impossible, so it shouldn't really take away from the theory. The next apparent flaw in this theory is Castletown's placement on the world map. In Ocarina of Time, Castletown is located at the northernmost point of Hyrule Field, whereas in Breath of the Wild, it appears to be at the southernmost point of the same area. The first thing to note on this matter is that Breath of the Wild's map is hugely inspired by that of Ocarina of Time. In fact, the large field in the centre of the map almost perfectly lines up with the perimeter of Ocarina of Time's Hyrule Field. When we line these two up, Death Mountain, Zora's Domain, Lake Hylia and Hyrule Castle fit quite nicely into place on the map. But this doesn't solve the question at hand. From what we know, the Great Plateau should be located here, facing this way, a position that would place it exactly where it was in Ocarina of Time. So the Great Plateau appears to not only be miles from its proper location, but also facing in entirely the wrong direction. So why isn't it there? How could it have moved? Well, movement of Hylian settlements isn't new to the Zelda series. Take Skyloft for example. This huge landmass was raised into the heavens by Hylia after Demise first attacked the surface in order to protect the Hylians. Could Castletown have been moved in some similar divine way? It's described as sacred and is apparently relatively free of the dangers elsewhere in the world. Relatively. It's also raised hundreds of feet above the rest of the world in order to protect it. If we look closely at this screenshot of the plateau, the base of it is heavily cloaked in clouds. These don't look natural by any means. We've seen the base of many high areas in Breath of the Wild, and none of them appear to have this unnatural looking cloud. This can be interpreted as evidence that the Great Plateau is not supposed to be there, a claim supported by its position on the world map being wrong. Maybe the events that befell Hyrule 100 years ago at the hands of the Calamity Ganon were so dire that the gods themselves intervened, not dissimilarly to how they intervened before Wind Waker and moved Castletown to a place of relative safety. This could also explain why the Guardians that appear to be laying siege to the settlement seem to be frozen in action. Some are mid-climb on the ruins of the castle. To prevent the holy site from this fate, it may have been moved by the Triforce or some other divine power to its new position, high above most of the dangers of the rest of the world, allowing the sacred Temple of Time to stay intact, and for Link to safely wake up from his slumber. Thanks for watching this video. What do you think about the similarities between these two locations? Leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, it really helps me out. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.